Hi, I'm Riley with RMS Roller-Grinder. I am a sales applications engineer, and today we are going to talk about grist mills for brewery applications. A grain mill is a piece of equipment that is used to crush up grain. In the most basic definition, that's what it does. That's what it does. We're taking whole malted barley and we're putting it through this piece of equipment, and we are getting crushed barley out the bottom of it. That from the highest level, that's the most, I guess, generic description that we can give. Really what is happening inside of the mill is, we are using a set of rolls with teeth cut into it to kind of crush that, do an initial crush on that barley to separate the husk from the endosperm. And then we want to mill that endosperm to a certain point. We don't want to get too carried away with it, to get too fine material. We don't want it too coarse. So we're looking for kind of a middle of the road crush. So a grain mill in brewing is used as really the first step of the process. So the first step of brewing is going to be crushing up your malted barley. So we are going to take that whole malted barley, we're going to put it into the top of the mill, and we are going to get the crushed barley out the bottom, ready to go into the mash tun for that first mash process. There's, I guess, a common misconception is, you put grain, whole malted barley into the top, and you just, get crushed barley at the bottom. You absolutely can overmill it, and you absolutely can undermill your barley. So, if you have, say, your rolls are too close together, and you just excessively mill that barley, what you're going to have is you're going to really damage that husk. So when you mill up that husk, what you end up with is, really you don't get that fluffy filter bed that you're looking for in your mash tun that you're going to use for filtering off that, that sweet wort off of the solids. So if you overmill it, you're going to end up with severely damaged husk, and then you're also going to end up with an excessive amount of fine material that is in your grist. And what you're going to end up with there is you're going to get a stuck mash. Your mash tun, the slits, that false bottom, you're going to get those small particles are going to get kind of conglomerated, and they're going to get stuck in those slits, and then you're not going to be able to run liquid through. You're going to have to, backfill, clear out that your false bottom, and just going to cause issues. It turns into basically a concrete block if you are over milling your barley. And if you undermill it, really what you are doing is you are just leaving a lot of sugars left in that grist. So if you undermill it, if you're not getting that endosperm exposed to the water for the mash, you're suffering an inefficiency. So essentially, once you go to throw your spent grains away, you're going to be washing, money down the drain. So we want to try to get as much of that sugar off of that grain as we can. So that consistent crush is extremely important. So it varies. The ideal crush for a brewery is going to vary slightly depending on the equipment that you're brewing with. You want kind of the real key is consistency. So we want that husk intact as much as possible, while still milling that endosperm up to a consistent size so that we can extract as much sugar as possible while still kind of maintaining that consistent filter bed. So some of the things that we look at are evaluating the grist with, say, like a set of sieves. There's a 3 sieve set is kind of the industry standard for the brewing industry, using a 14, a 30, a 60 sieve, and a pan. You want to get a nice kind of consistent distribution depending on your equipment, and it's going to vary from 55 to maybe 75% in that top sieve, maybe 20 to 25 in that 30, and then probably about 15 to maybe 20% on that 60 sieve. And then I typically recommend keeping that pan under 10%. So that's kind of the sweet spot, but it definitely does vary depending on the design of your brew house. How long milled grains are good for in your brewery can vary quite a bit. You'll get differing opinions from brewers. Some will say that as soon as you crush your grain, you should have that. You should brew with that. Within a week. There's malt house providers that do mill grains. That do pre-milled grains for breweries, and I believe the lifespan on those is roughly 3 months. But there is many that argue that as soon as you crush that grain, that it starts to deteriorate from there. So we typically try to recommend that you use them within the week that you crush, but opinions do vary. So to measure the crush, you're going to use a set of sieves to kind of evaluate the distribution of your crush between those different sieves sizes. And those sieves are basically a pan that has a grate in the bottom of the pan. And based off the size of the pan, the spacing in that grate changes. So the larger the particle, they will get stuck in the top sieves, and as they get lower in that set of sieves, the particle size gets smaller and smaller. And really what you're looking for is the consistency, the percentage, the distribution between those different sieves in the pan, to try and hit your targets for your ideal settings for your brew house. To move the crush consistency or the amounts that are in those different sieves, it really comes down to the gap setting that's on your mill. So if you have a 2-row mill, you have one set of adjustments to move those those 2 rolls in and out. If you have a 4-roll, you have 2 sets of adjustments that kind of gives you some more consistency, a little more flexibility, more control over the consistency of your crush. But the gap setting between the rolls and then the rate that you're putting the grains into the mill is really the big adjustments that you're able to make. So what you're really going to be looking for with quality grist mills and graining equipment is, the most common things that I hear is adjustability. You don't want to have to, this is the first step of your brew day. So the last thing that you want to do is to, fight with your mill to get a consistent crush out of it. So you're really looking for something that is, once you set it, it's going to stay there. You don't have to worry about it drifting. You can trust that you set it and it's going to be at that setting for the duration of your brew day. I'd say that's probably the first thing. Next thing is adjustability. There may be some grains that you want to adjust the gap on, say wheat or malted oats that you want to get a little bit more crush on to get more, to kind of maximize your efficiency. So you're going to want some of that adjustability to be able to kind of dial that in. And then kind of goes back to that consistency, that reliability, being able to adjust it back to that known setting. You want to be able to trust that, the setting that you put in is, what it is consistently. You're going to want to, look at kind of the total cost of ownership of that equipment. You may be able to get a lower price on a piece of equipment right off the gate, maybe something that's made overseas. But then you have to, really consider if there's any spare parts that you end up needing to replace, the time that it takes to get your, troubleshoot equipment, the accessibility, how quickly things can get shipped out. The last thing you want to run into is being down, can't brew because you don't have a grain mill to be able to process your grain. So with grain handling equipment for brewing, there are, a ton of different options that you have available. Depending on how fast you want to move something, how gentle you want to be on the grist, and then how much space you have to be able to move that material. So there's a variety of options when it comes to silos. It's kind of some standards that we have for sizing based off of a full truckload, and then having some extra cushion for conveyance. We have a wide variety of options depending on how much space you have and how fast you want to move that material and how gentle you want to be on that material. And then we also have a variety of options for bulk bag racks. Bulk bag racks and silos are a great way to, for one, save money on your grain, and then also allow you to kind of set up some levels of automation so that you are not, so it's not quite as labor intensive of a process, rather than throwing, multiple 50, 55 pound bags of grain. You've got, with the bulk bag rack, you can get 2,500 pounds. It's kind of readily available, or, with the silos up to, you get 60,000 pounds that you can have ready waiting for you. So there's a lot of different flexibility, a lot of different options that come with grain handling equipment. And then also, there's a lot of options from an automation standpoint of getting a control system set up that can have recipe control, so that you have a variety of different shift brewers that are going to be brewing. You want consistency, so that can take some of that human element out of it, where if you have recipes set up for your grain, it's repeatable. You're getting the same amounts, the same crush on every batch. So there's a ton of different options out there. There's a lot of different variations depending on your setup, depending on the space that you have available and how automated you want things. Just a ton of different options.